Yeah, hello there. Welcome to Expose It with Mr. Egalitarian, powered by Solution Dreamers Network. And today is going to be a fantastic day. How are you doing? How's been your weekend so far? How's been the work during the weekdays? I hope you're making everything look better, look great, you're fine. Everything is going on better with you. And I believe that you're still going to do more with that. Yes, today is another beautiful day because we're going to be bringing somebody all the way from Sydney, Australia. And believe me, today is going to be talking to us about a very beautiful topic, vision for a future Earth. Our future, what vision does it have? And believe me, we're talking about Elliot Connor from Sydney, Australia. And believe me, Connor is somebody that I just call, let me just say, a gift to the world because regarding his age, his exposure, his work so far so good, and what he has done so far. After this program, we're going to be sharing his website because he has done a lot of great jobs. I was watching his video today earlier and I saw so much things he has done as a TED speaker and he's been wonderful. So we believe that Connor is going to put light to us today as regards the topic vision for a future Earth. And we're talking about our wild animals, how we relate with them in our environment and what is expected of them because they are one of those things that we should consider. Expose It with Mr. Egalitarian is proud to bring this handsome young man all the way from Australia, Sydney. And believe me, Connor is awesome, fantastic. I would say that 100 times and a million times because he's just fantastic. As I speak to you, he's right here with us in the studio, and I'll bring him on very soon. Before I do that, Expose It with Mr. Egalitarian is something that you need to, all your time, all your days long to watch because we bring into you fabulous people all around the world. We bring to you people who are doing great things, who are having great initiative, and who are contributing to global development and making the world a community instead of discrimination. And that's one of the beautiful things you can contribute to the earth. Now, today, we're going to be bringing you this handsome young man from Sydney, Australia, talking about vision for a future Earth, Elliot Connor. I will soon bring in Elliot Connor for you now, and believe me, we're going to all enjoy it. I want you to sit back and enjoy the program. If you have any question, you throw it to the screen, and we're going to show Elliot is going to answer because I believe he is wonderful and is up to task to answer your question anywhere in this world. Connor is awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring in Connor from Australia.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, Connor. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, very well. It's evening my end, so I've had a very productive day. Saturday had just gone by for me, but I imagine it's morning on your end.
I'm happy to see you on the program, Expose It with Mr. Egalitarian. How do you feel coming to this program?
I'm looking forward to sharing some thoughts with the audience and answering all of their wonderful questions.
Okay, all right. I'm so much happy to see you here. In fact I'm wowed to have seen you today. I'm super excited to be sharing the world topic with you today, and I believe you are ready for us and you're ready for the world to go.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Now, I really enjoy working with fellow young leaders, sharing thoughts, sharing ideas. I think that's a beauty of the environmental space in which I work. It's so diverse. It's a huge challenge. It's a huge issue we have to overcome. But so many people working towards these solutions.
All right, it's Expose It with Mr. Egalitarian, and I'm with Elliot Connor from Sydney. And before Elliot starts talking, I would like to make few citations about Elliot. Now, Elliot is the founder and CEO of Human Nature Projects, an international environmental charity supporting volunteers across 105 countries. He is a TED speaker, author, podcast host, and filmmaker with a goal of reflecting reframing our human relationship with nature. So he's saving the people and the planet at just 18 years of age. Wow. Elliot has been awarded Samsung's 2020 Eco Hero Award, Young Citizen of the Year, and Young Land Care Leader. His mission is to develop a model for mass individualism, which is empowering future leaders generating grassroots impact globally. From Quito, Ecuador, to KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, to quiet Sydney suburbs. It applies its leadership acumen and systems thinking to solve the most pressing issues of our 21st century. Wow, Connor, what a profile, what a timeline, what I cannot even, in fact, I cannot think it through my head. Reading through your citation and knowing the fact that your age is just within the short time you've made all this massive movement and you've contributed a lot to the world. Even I, at 32, have not done something closer to that. What was that initiative all about? What was the inspiration in the first place?
Sure. So, I mean, it depends how far back you want to go. I live currently in Sydney, but I'm originally from the UK, from Britain. So actually the sort of countryside, nature appreciation, all of that, the outdoors industry is much larger there. So I guess brought up in that sort of family, doing amateur bird watching, getting out in nature for these long walks, these hikes, just being immersed in it was part of my upbringing. But I guess there were maybe two moments that catalyzed that love of nature for me. So the first was when I was 10 years old. And at the time, I was camping with my family in Botswana, so in southern Africa. And it was quite a remote campsite in the north of the country, no fences whatsoever. So the animals were wandering through. And I was walking back from the toilet block. It was actually. So it was nighttime and I was taking my time. I was dawdling, appreciating the nightlife, looking at the stars. But as I reached the edge of the fire circle of our campsite, so just coming into this light, I had this sixth sense and I turned around and there, maybe 2 meters behind me, was a young leopard crouched, stalking low to the ground. So, I mean, that's an experience you don't easily forget. I looked into its eyes for several seconds before my brother turned around with a spotlight, shone it on it. And obviously, once the leopard has been seen, they typically hunt by ambush. So I was in no danger there. But it was quite a memorable experience for me and quite a powerful, a poignant one as well, because almost certainly that leopard had been habituated. It had been fed by other campers before us. So it had come to associate humans with food, which obviously meant it became this problem animal. So the leopard was reported into the authorities and sadly, most likely relocated or shot. So it's really not great, but it showed me in a very memorable way this relationship we humans share with nature and some of the issues with that. So that was one of those big experiences for me. The second came just a few years ago, actually. So at this time, I was volunteering in a rescue centre for birds of prey, hedgehogs, bats, a few other creatures in southern France. And this was in January of 2019. So it was midwinter over there, very, very cold, lots of snow. I was lodging in a castle. I was spending most of the light hours of the day, obviously shorter days, but spending all the time I could caring for these injured creatures over the winter. And I mean, I spent my downtime there. So some of the nights in the darkness, researching the operations of about 200 major environmental NGOs. So seeing what they were doing, seeing how I could go further, because I'd been volunteering, obviously, for several years before that locally. So doing all the grassroots work in Sydney, citizen science, helping out with museums, helping in this naturalist capacity to protect nature, to conserve it, and as a youth activist. But I'd wanted to move on to the global scale. So that was interesting for me. It sort of taught me what I could do, what was lacking, and led to the formation of human nature projects. It was actually my last week over there. So I spent about a month in France. We did a vulture release. I mean, it's impossible for me to describe. We were on this sheer precipice in the French Alps, absolutely pristine, beautiful views over thousands of miles in every direction. So incredible with the sunset just over the horizon. And I opened the dog kennel, which is what you transport these birds in. And the vulture flew out. It had been in care. I'd been feeding it, looking after it for 3-4 weeks before that. So I became very close to it. But then seeing it out there with its wild cousins, their wingtips flashing, soaring above us, just circling, it was incredible. Really, really memorable. And I remember at that moment thinking, what if everyone can experience this? Because that was such a moving moment for me. So powerful. And I mean, it changed my life. So now I'm doing this charity, running human nature projects, and using this storytelling. So sharing my experiences, my passion for nature with others, which is what I so love doing.
Okay, that was beautiful. In the first place, I wanted you to, make some presentation for 20 minutes but I saw that I have a lot to ask you rather than making you present many things about the topic. But I believe many people want to really know who Connor is, because when I posted you on my Facebook, people were asking me, are you serious? 18 years old? What? That's a lie. So I said, okay, you would see Connor, and even if you want an opportunity to be online while it was all online, maybe I will repost everything so you know from there. Maybe you can later go to his pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to ask many questions. Okay, now let me start with this kind of question. Now, you're a TED speaker, all right, and you're funny as well. So do you do jokes also, apart from being a speaker, like a normal speaker talking about nature, wildlife? Do you do joke, funny things, stuff like that?
I think it's really important when you're talking about nature to be original and to be optimistic. So those are the two things I aim for when I'm speaking. I think often you see in the media nowadays that there's all these negative statistics, like we're losing 1 million species by 2100. So you don't want to read that. It doesn't help anyone. It means you lose hope. It means that nobody's going to go out and save them. But as I did in my TEDx speech, I gave everyone a memory test used on chimpanzees. So we had this beautiful moment where they were all struggling to do this test. And when you watch videos of the chimpanzees doing this, they do it in a split second. They're so intelligent, so good at it. But we had that wonderful moment where everyone was absolutely flummoxed. So it just goes to show how much we don't know about our place within nature, this human nature, which we so often talk about. But it was using this game, essentially, this amusing method of teaching that to people. And it made it a lot more memorable, certainly for the audience as well, because I think if we can find strategies like that to communicate about these issues, then that's infinitely more powerful. That's what storytelling's about. And it's been passed down to us since the human species came out of Africa, since we emerged as a species ourselves.
Okay, all right. Now, Connor, now there is a time I was watching one of your TED talks, and I saw you made a formation from 1 to 9, merging it like a code to explain some stuff to people while they understand what you said. How did you do all those things? Like, was it a kind of initiative you learned from people, or you have some ancestors that you look after or up to achieve many things? Or how was it like? How did you create those codes? Because I was marveled when I saw them.
I think for me, I really enjoy trying to, I guess, take a high level approach to these issues. So look at the bigger picture, essentially, what's going on this global scale, or what's going on over decades, many, many years. Recently wrote a book during lockdown. So we had only a short lockdown, the 6 to 8 weeks here in Sydney. But I spent that time looking at this human relationship with nature over time and how that's changed. And I found that fascinating because if you look at that big picture, what's going on over millennia, over centuries, then it's quite fascinating how things have changed, and they've changed quite dramatically. Conservation itself is only maybe 70 years old as a movement, so it's still evolving very rapidly. But I like looking at that sort of high level approach to things. And then the natural step is to codify that. So I had to put it in my own words, which is what I did with my TED speech, with these laws of evolution and applying those to human development, but also with the 4 C's of conservation. So these other frameworks I use, and they're really helpful through human nature projects. Obviously, that's trying to create a model which can be scaled across many different countries. So if we have these philosophies, which all of our national teams can follow, and across the international scale as well, in these working groups we run, then that's really powerful because ideas are what spread. That's the whole idea of TED, is ideas worth spreading. So I'm hoping that if I can create this new dialogue around nature, then that's what will be far more powerful than any of this work I can do.
That's beautiful. I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of you, and I love the initiative you're putting on. Kudos to you, Connor. There is another thing that's I have in my mind now. You so much love animals. I don't know. You love animals because I saw most of your videos. You did some kind of videos for animals, and you define them as nature, and everything you put together with some beautiful quotes. What was the inspiration like? Growing with animals and having to know animals and having to know their relationship with nature and how they relate with people generally. What was it about?
Yeah, well, how do I condense my life story down? I think for me, it's been really the sum of all these experiences. I've been very, very blessed in these past few years to have that opportunity to relate to other animals, to see them up close and personal, often in their natural habitat, but in all circumstances. So one of the very first things I did when I was looking to become more active in these environmental circles was to learn about nature. So I got a small library I've collected in my basement downstairs. So reading through lots of old books, as you can imagine, a young David Attenborough might have done, as a young Jane Goodall might have done. All of these famous environmentalists, reading their thoughts, hearing from the people of centuries gone by. And that was the first step I took. But then you have to transfer that into real life experiences. So I spent about 6 months photographing just any of the insects I could find in my garden. And I've got a very overgrown, disordered garden out back, but there's plenty of these mini beasts out there, which I could photograph with this macro lens of mine. So seeing up close in detail all about them, all about how they moved, how they lived, and learning their life stories. I would post them on iNaturalist, which is a citizen science platform. So experts then identify them for me, and I could learn all about them. So learn what sorts of creatures they were, go from there. But that really allowed me to work out the taxonomy all about these living creatures. And I mean, several years on, I'm now helping to do a few field guides. So it all comes around. But that was really powerful for me. And then also the pets, the animals I've kept here at home. So I had 2 stick insects for about 18 months, which were lovely creatures. I've still got 3 pygmy bearded dragons, which are a desert dwelling lizard here in Australia. They're lovely creatures again. I do animal rescuing here in Sydney, which means we take in injured wildlife. We've always got something out back in the garden. Currently, it's a pair of adolescent plovers. water birds. They're beautiful. They're called Salt and Pepper, but we're soon going to be releasing them, and I'm sure we'll get something else in then. We've always got be it a bird or a possum or what have you. We had a sea turtle a month back, so that was interesting as well. But that really allows me to build relationships with these animals, to care for them over a few weeks or a month, to really understand them as individuals, as characters. And I think that's the key to coming to better appreciate nature and to better appreciate animals, is to look at them as you look at a fellow human being. So as these living, thinking, breathing creatures with their own personalities, with their own character. So all of those experiences have been pivotal for me.
That was fantastic, Connor. Your submission is just getting along with what I, envisage in my mind, and it's really going as planned. So thank you so much for such wonderful submission all along. You're watching Expos'It with Mr. Egalitarian, and I'm with Elliot Connor from Sydney, a 10-year-old who has been the world giant, doing something wonderful for the nature to make the earth a better place, and telling everyone, every human in this whole wide world, that wildlife can survive while they are with humans. And that is wonderful. Elliot is doing a great job. And I'm a fan. Elliot. I'm a fan. I'm saying that today. Maybe someday when I come to Sydney, I'll join you in your quest to make the world a better place with wildlife.
Definitely.
All right. Okay. All right, Connor. How does your family and relatives generally see you in your mission regarding the world future? How do they see you in your quest to make sure that wildlife and human actually have relationships together? And it works very fine, because when you're in family, you have these people in the family that don't support your mission, your vision, and there's a kind of stress at the point in time. So how do you put things together regarding your age and maturity put into these things? How do you manage yourself while achieving your dream to this point?
Yeah, it's a good question. So obviously I've just turned 18, which meant that for most of this journey of mine, I've been legally a minor, which creates a whole new set of red tape, a whole new set of papers to fill out, bureaucracy to overcome. I remember when I started up Human Nature Projects, my charity, then I was 16 years old. So, I mean, there's no real process in the legal system to be the founder, the CEO of a charity at that age is really unprecedented ground. So that was a whole new complication in itself. But I think essentially I've been really well supported by the people around me and by my family as well. So I have many mentors and many figures I look up to. Speaking with a BBC producer on and off, one of the first people actually who supported me, who stood up for me, was Steve Parish, who's probably Australia's foremost photographer. So really well known in the country. But he invited me up to a weekend masterclass of his up in Queensland, so a few hundred kilometres to the north. And he taught me everything about the work he does, his photography, his publishing, to communicate about nature. And that was really inspiring for me to have someone show that faith in me, to invite me along, to take me on as a protege. And that definitely inspired me. I was on a webinar with Jane Goodall a few months back. So incredible woman and incredible thoughts that she shared. Really interesting conversation. But all of these people around me, and there's way too many for me to name here, they've been integral to my journey, really. They've supported me as a young leader, and I'm constantly learning. This a space in nature where we know so little, but there's still so much to learn. There's just that unending wealth of knowledge out there. So I think I never know enough or know anything really in comparison to all that's out there. But I certainly do my best, and I really enjoy connecting with fellow leaders and like-minded persons.
Okay, all right. Now, Connor, with your exposure and what you've gained so far and what you're contributing to the world, when you're with your friends, how do they see you, your friends? Don't they see you as an alien? Like, oh, Connor, no, you cannot be with us. You're an alien. You're doing something more than us. So, how do they feel? And how do you respond to what they say regarding that?
Yeah, it's good question again. So obviously, people's views vary about the subject, about nature itself. I mean, I was having a conversation with my friend this afternoon, trying to convince him that insects were fascinating, interesting creatures. He thought they were strange, bizarre, unhygienic, weird, things like that. It was an interesting conversation, certainly. But for me, it's all about trying to tell people the journey, tell people the stories behind it, why I do what I do. Because if you bring it back to that personal level, then it immediately makes it make sense in a way. It makes it much more engaging, much more interesting for them, and easier for them to digest as well. So I think, fortunately, amongst the youth of today, these environmental issues are much better known. So most of my friends will have a very good idea of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and the issues at hand. But in terms of the details, in terms of persuading them about other animals being unique and engaging creatures, in terms of persuading them that humans are animals and our place in this grand web of life, then that's what the real dialogue is. That's what my book's about. That's what my podcast's about. That's my life's goal, to reframe our human relationship with nature. And if I can persuade them, that's obviously really good practice for the long term, persuading political leaders like Donald Trump, persuading everyone around me to continue on this journey, continue on this quest too.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry, your sound's cutting out.
okay. Okay, you really talk about Donald Trump. What do you see in Trump generally as the president of the United States? Do you think it's a father that is worth emulating in terms of business and innovation? Do you think Trump is a kind of person you can emulate as a leader, as a father, as a mentor?
Yeah, well, that's the topical issue right now, isn't it? With the US election coming up, what do we think of the situation over there in terms of the
Okay, can you
environment?
get me
Then,
now?
yes, I'm getting you loud and clear. Thank you. I was just saying that I think in terms of environmental policy, so how Donald Trump and his competitors are representing the environment, I don't think there's a clear winner. There's no great person to follow in the US, unfortunately, at the moment, from a political standpoint. I think some are better than others. So Donald Trump has caused quite a lot of damage with his policies in terms of cutting funding to scientific institutions, going back on US environmental policy. So the USA has the second most threatened species of any country, second or third. It fluctuates somewhat. But they're not doing great on environmental terms. It's the shorthand. And I think there are a lot of political leaders to blame in that journey they've had as a country and in coming to that point. But we do need some pretty urgent, rapid action from that front. Obviously, they pulled out of the Paris Agreement. So in terms of mitigating climate change, that's a whole nother challenge. But there are many, many reasons why. In the US, in terms of threatened species, conserving wolves, conserving eagles, conserving all of these endangered species, then we do need strong, urgent action in terms of going backwards as they're doing right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not getting you again. Do you want to type a question in the chat? Is that easier? I think your audio is just cutting in and out. It's the challenge of connecting halfway across the globe.
Okay. All right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful because I believe news here, news there about President Donald Trump currently and the election regarding the United States. They're thinking about the imbalance of things going on. And when the country is imbalanced, the world is imbalanced also. So that Connor, do you think wild animals can actually live with humans? Let's say, for example,
Oh, I didn't get your example there. But can wild animals live with humans? It depends what you mean. So I think certainly that we can share this planet. Can you live in the same household? Depends what the animal is. If we start basic, then I think we have to redefine what nature is. Obviously, nature is increasingly in the modern age coming to mean these untouched, pristine wild places. But nature is other living creatures. It's these ecosystems that surround us. So cities are these human ecosystems. They still are full of nature. They still have plenty of wildlife around them. I mean, Sydney's a beautiful green city. Have plenty of animals, which I see through the animal rescuing, through my naturalist activities. But I think if you go to any city across the globe, you'll find urban wildlife. You'll find plants and animals and birds, which you can see. So in that sense, animals already do live alongside humans with humans. The question is, how can we do it at a greater scale and how can we do it sustainably? So in answer to that, there are many, many solutions on the individual scale. It starts obviously with learning about nature. So if you can take your daily commute to learn about a local bird species or about an insect or about a plant, then you'll be able to see that in your neighborhood. So you'll be able to make room for that, make time and space to appreciate it. And that leads to caring for it, nurturing it. So if you have, say, a garden or a front area outside your house, then you can plant wild plants, wild species, which attract other animals and which create these ecosystems even within your neighborhood, within your surrounds. So that's something you can do on the individual scale. Obviously, you can devote your time and your money to environmental organizations. But if you look at that micro scale, then there's always something we can do. And then if you expand that to the far end, you've got plans which are like the Half Earth Project. So what that suggests is if we set aside half of our lands and oceans by 2050, then we still have plenty of space to devote to agriculture, to farming, to building our cities. But it also means that nature has space to thrive. And 50% is quite a paltry amount if you think about it. We only 0.000000001% of life on Earth. So thinking that we need 50% of the planet is ridiculous. But if we do that, then about 85% of species will no longer be under threat of extinction. So that means that 85% are fine. They'll be okay. And the 15%, besides that, then we need to look after them. We need to actively conserve them. But that 50% is a really good starting point. And currently, it's about 1% of our oceans and 14% of land space. So it's a long way to go. But that means that if we can set aside those spaces, both where humans aren't, but also where we are, so in our cities, creating greener, cleaner spaces for all humans to live, then that's wonderful. Just as a last point, I was reading recently about what's called pleaching. So you should look this up if you haven't heard of it. But pleaching is where you're growing houses. So it's an incredible technique. It's a lovely new technology, one of many, many strategies coming out nowadays. But pleaching is where you have a 3D printed frame, and then you're planting fast growing trees and shrubs, which then grow around this frame and become essentially the walls of your house, your building. So that allows you to grow villages, grow communities, grow your own house. And if you can do that, then your house is part of nature. So there's no question of whether you can fit nature in. But things like that are the way forward. And I think if we can do that, then nature and humans can coexist, can thrive together. Still struggling with the audio. Do you want to try again? Or you can type me a message on WhatsApp or in the chat here. Nope. It's fascinating how these technology issues work out. It just shows you how well designed systems are. In my book, I discuss about trees communicating through mycorrhizal networks. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's called the Wood Wide Web. It's the tree version of the internet, and they do it far better than we do. But they're able to pass very detailed information between plants within a forest or to their neighbors, which can pass it on. So distributing this information across entire glades of trees, across these floral communities. And they are able to pass nutrients onto their offspring. So like bottle feeding them to make sure they thrive, they survive, which is really quite incredible through these root systems. So the fungi attached to their roots, which allow them to pass information, nutrients to other trees, other plants within the community. So it reminds me a lot of our human connection, these systems like this. And usually it works, but sometimes it doesn't. So
Wow, that
that
was beautiful. You're watching Expose It with Mr. Egalitarian, and I am with Connor from Sydney. And believe me, Connor is feeding me big here. He's feeding me big, and I'm learning a lot from Elliot Connor from Sydney. Now, Connor, this question. Now, regarding your age, don't you feel inferior to bigger personalities sometimes when you get in a kind of maybe a setting or maybe an event to speak like the TEDx? Don't you feel inferior to bigger personalities also were there, considering the fact that you are also a big personality, but your age, don't you think when you see them, do you feel that kind of 18-year-old, or you feel more inspired to speak when you see them?
Yeah, so I think for the most part, I find my age, it doesn't really put me off at all. You mentioned the TEDx speech, and I started that off actually by saying that I'm, I think, 40 years old in giant tortoise years, or 1700 years old in immortal jellyfish years. So it was intended as a joke, but the point behind that also stands that age is quite an artificial concept. Why 18 is so important as that landmark in human culture. I mean, 18 is no different to 17, no different to 19. They're all just 1 year increments. So I think it's really important to realize that obviously there is a difference between being 18 or 94, whatever Attenborough is at the moment. I lose track. But I think in spite of that, there's definitely a role to be played by youth voices. So over the past half a dozen years, we've seen this huge rise essentially from nothing to having youth represented in environmental matters on the global stage. So Greta Thunberg is a great example of this. But so many youth environmental activists have led this path. And I guess, as Isaac Newton once said, if I've got anywhere, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. So there are many others who've come before me, even if it's only by a few years. But they definitely have solidified this place that youth voices have. And in terms of sharing my ideas, provided I think they're interesting, valuable, insightful, then I have no qualms about doing that. Whether I'm 18 or 80 years old, I think they still have the same import. So there's just a different perspective to be offered by people across all these generations. And I mentioned right at the start of this talk, actually, how fascinating I find it talking to people from all sorts of backgrounds, the diversity in the environmental field. So, of course, that is across cultures, languages, backgrounds, but it's also across age groups. So Human Nature Projects has people from all sorts of ages, be they 18, be they 48 or 80 years old, but they still have something interesting to share. And it's, I find it most interesting when you have them all in one room together, all in one of our staff meetings together, sharing thoughts, sharing ideas. If I'm on a panel discussion, say, with people from all different ages, then that is one of the most valuable things. Because the 80-year-olds have the experience of the entirety of conservation in the modern sense, whereas I at 18 have the experience of this latest trend within the space. I mentioned the evolution of environmentalism. So the whole space is changing very rapidly. And I consider myself as a futurist, so looking ahead 10, 20 years. We mentioned the title of this presentation is Vision for a Future Earth. So what can we do in terms of, by the end of my lifetime, where I want our space on this planet as humans to be? And I think if we can, as a youth, represent that perspective in terms of just looking at history, looking at the past to advise us, then that's really, really powerful. So in short, I think that I don't feel intimidated at all as a young person. The TEDx speech was probably my first talk to any size of audience on a public stage. So it was definitely a step up. But in the 12 months, 18 months since,
Connor,
I've been doing plenty of
you're
presentations.
Filmmaker. I just get it on my head. Okay, Connor is just a multi-talent. He's making films, going into the world and getting everything done together. How do you do that? Why do you know that you still have a project in hand, to do? So how do you combine everything together? Filmmaking, the stuffs, and converting everything, doing the how do you put things together?
For me, it's all storytelling, and I used the word earlier on in the piece, but be it filmmaking, be it doing these public presentations, these keynote speeches, be it doing the podcasting or writing my book, or even running a charity, that's all about storytelling. So as a leader, you're telling your own story and the story of your vision. So it's all about that vulnerability, that authenticity as a leader, which makes up your story. And I mean, some of the anecdotes we started off this live stream with, those are examples of my story and the story behind Human Nature projects. But in terms of what I'm doing with filmmaking and some of these other mediums like the podcasting or like the book or like the presentations, that's all about telling new stories, sharing new ideas. So the filmmaking I especially see is really powerful, and that's where I'd like to head in future as a career move and as trying to create the maximum possible impact in my work. I think the film medium is incredibly impactful. Just earlier this year, in January, I spent 6 months doing an internship with a company called Wild Earth TV. And what they do is they send out 2 World War II Jeeps twice a day for 3-hour safari drives. So 6 hours of filming total. And I was on the back of one of those Jeeps filming non-stop, live streamed with about a 5-second delay to 1 million viewers over the course of the time I was there. So it was an incredible experience, very high stakes, high pressure, but a very steep learning curve as well. And what I saw in terms of the community they created with that format was really moving for me, because these viewers were people who were passionate about nature. They cared about these animals they were seeing. And of course, it's completely live, authentic, unscripted, unedited. So it's really what it is like out there in the African bush, but also really engaged, these viewers were. So they were asking questions of the presenters, learning as they went. And we also live streamed into schools, into other community groups. So spreading our love of nature that way. But that was really moving for me to see as an experience, and definitely changed my perspective of what the medium can do. So powerful, what they created there. On the first night I was there, it happened to be Christmas Eve. We were doing a nighttime safari drive, and I was on the tracker's seat. These vehicles were custom designed with a tracker's seat, which is essentially a padded seat on the bonnet of the car, so right on the front of the vehicle. But I was spotlighting, seeing what I could find. And we came across a lion pride on the hunt. So a dozen lionesses, which were stalking a herd of impala. So it ended up that we pulled up very close. We turned off all of our lights. and we waited for about 30 seconds. There was sudden snorting, which is the noise impalas make to sound an alarm call. So it's and that signaled that they'd seen these lions. They'd made their strike. So how lions hunt is they've got this wave of lionesses. So it'd be 11 out of the 12 were herding all these impala around, and one lies in ambush. So they were herding these impala right next to the car, and it ended up that this lion in ambush did the takedown within about 5 meters of where I was dangling my feet. So that was an experience and a half. It's something you don't forget, but it really showed me the power of this authenticity, the raw power of live streaming and showing people the world as it is through the film medium. So that was just one of my many, many memories from the time there. And since then, with COVID, with the lockdown, I've been obviously constrained to Sydney and constrained to working at home, but still trying to share those stories and moving forward. Sorry, I can't hear you there. We should have used the Wood Wide Web. Clearly, the trees would have been more reliable. The other time, the other thing about my time in South Africa is obviously when you're live streaming, when things go wrong, you have to fix them really quickly. So it's high stakes in that respect too. We were filming a wild dog hunt one time when, due to the heavy off-roading, the camera went down. So obviously that's one of those moments where you're shaking your head and frowning. But the ups and the downs. There you go. Hear you now. Do you want to try again? I'm half getting your audio.
That was beautiful, Connor. It's like you shouldn't stop talking because your story is just captivating. And I believe Many people need to hear from you. All right, Connor, do you think? Okay, let's say, can you convince me that when I go to the wild, I will come back alive? Talking about relationship with the wild animals. Can you convince me that when I go to the wild, I will come back alive? Giving me a concrete evidence, okay? So do you convince me like that? That if I go to the wild, I will come back alive?
Well, I can't guarantee anything, but suffice to say, you're in a lot more danger staying where you are than going into the wild. So, I think, in broad terms, being in a national park is usually safer than crossing the road. So, in that respect, I think you're pretty well off. When I was doing the filming in South Africa, I mean, the closest I came to being afraid, being in danger of any sort, was actually with elephants. And elephants, obviously, very large creatures. When you have a male bull elephant in must, so when it's sexually active, high spirits, often a temper, looking for females, then that's when you don't want to get on their wrong side. But absolutely no fear whatsoever that I felt when I was out there. I mean, you're obviously respectful, you're aware, conscious of these animals and how they're behaving, whether you need to reverse the car, give it more space, or whether you can get more up close, more personal with it. It depends on the circumstance. Just like if you're interacting with another human being. If someone's walking at you with a knife, that's the time when you run or you jump out the window. But if someone's coming up with their arms spread wide to hug you, then that's the time where you embrace them. Animals are no different to people in that respect. It's all about being aware of what's going on, being conscious of your surroundings. But you are really in no greater danger being out in the bush than being in Sydney or in any city. Australia famously.
Now, where do you see human nature? Where do you see?
Where do I see human nature going in the future? Not getting your audio. Where do I see human nature? I think for me, human nature is about recognizing that humans are animals, being the first step, and taking that to its logical conclusion, which reflects in how we behave, how we treat other animals. If you think about it in basic terms, then we have spent the past several millennia trying to separate ourselves from animurs, trying to fathom any reason we possibly could why we are better than these creatures often. It's this superiority complex. So if you had the Greek Aristotle trying to describe nature, then he describes what's called a scala naturae. So he described it as a pyramid where you've got humans at the top, or God at the top, actually, followed by larger animals, followed by smaller animals, followed by rocks, and then the devil at the bottom. So this is what he imagined as being this order of living things. But essentially, it's more like the circle of life. So we're all connected.
I've been with Connor all along, and he's been saying fantastic things all along. And believe me, today I've learned a lot, and I can't wait to call Connor again on this platform. Now, Connor, your message to viewers globally and Sydney and the people of Australia generally, your message to them about how they live a good life with the wildlife.
My message would be try and be a better animal. I think if you could do that, if you can look at animals, see how beautiful, incredible, fascinating they are, and see them as personalities, as beings, individuals, then that's how we move forward.
All right, that's a very beautiful one. So, Connor, what do you think about this program, and what do you advise that we should bring over to the program for people's view? Because we're looking for more of people like you, and we believe you have friends who are doing something great outside there. Would you be able to recommend this program to them and bring them on so that we can see what they are doing?
Definitely. Yeah, I'll be in touch. I love what you're doing with the program, sharing thoughts, sharing ideas with the world. So definitely, if I can support it, I'll make sure I keep on listening in to future live streams and hearing all your wonderful speakers.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Connor. It's wonderful connecting with you because number one, I love everything about you. I love your look. I love your smile. I love your everything, your initiative. For the fact that you're 18, if I come to Sydney someday, I'm going to locate you because I still need to learn a lot from you. And that's how we grow in the whole wide world because I just love, and your dimple is there also. When you smile, your dimple is there to show to the world that no, you're not just ordinary Connor. You are a Connor who know what he's doing. And I'm super excited I met you. I'm proud of you. I can say, Connor, anywhere I go in the whole wide world. And I know the people of Sydney and Australia will be proud to have you, Connor. So your general message to the world, and we call it today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, all I'd say is if you can go out there, take a leap of faith and dream big, then that's how all this change happens. So hopefully you found this conversation interesting, insightful, and maybe took something away in terms of hope, in terms of inspiration to do something big, because that's what I'd like to see.
That's it. That's it. And that's where we call the curtain today. It's been wonderful talking to a Sydney genius, an 18-year-old from Sydney, Connor. And it's been wonderful. Believe me, that's what we do in Expos'It with Mr. Egalitarian, powered by Solution Dreamers Network. We bring in people who are fascinating, captivating, and fabulous all around the world to make sure that you get to do something fabulous with your life. Don't just live for a purpose. And that's how you're going to benefit the world you live in. And that's how you're going to function very well. The world needs you. And the world is waiting for you to do something great. Connor, I love you so much. My message to people of Sydney, they should take good care of you because the world is watching you. We're going to need more from you. And we believe you're still going to deliver more. All right? So take good care of yourself, Connor. And we're going to meet someday in Sydney.
I look forward to it. Thank you. Goodbye.
All right, goodbye, Connor, and take good care of yourself.
Thank you. I will.
All right, that was Elliot Connor from Sydney. I told you, in Expos'It with Mr. Egalitarian, we'll be bringing fabulous people from around the world doing great things. And believe me, they're going to be contributing to global success. What are you doing that is great? The initiative that you might be doing that is worth, looking at by the whole wide world. Come here at Solution Dreamers Network. Expos'It with Mr. Egalitarian will expose it for you. Now, don't forget that Mr. Egalitarian is into things that will make the world flourish. If you want to do your own wedding, you want to make your wedding look rocky, like that. You understand me now? Just call Mr. Egalitarian. We'll be there for you. If it is nikah in what? In Islamic way also. We're also there. We're doing it. Are you making it? Because we're not going to be that bad person. We're going to be good till we die. And that's it. That's it every time. Now, again, we're talking about Expos'It with mistakes. What do we expose? People who do great things. People who have great initiative. Like, look at Connor, 18-year-old. Oh my God. Even I am 32 and I haven't done something like that. Believe me, it's something. All right. So I am proud of that young man that just left this program. And believe me, we still have more coming, fascinating people around the world. Now, Expos'It with Mr. Egalitarian will bring you business. Promote your brands for you. That's what we do here. You have a brand you want to promote, bring it to this session. We're going to promote it for you. You're going to be there. live, and you're going to enjoy every bit of it because people are going to see your product and they're going to come after you and patronize you. That's what we do here. All right. We talk about career. We talk about entrepreneurship. We talk about relationship, leadership, and mentorship. We talk about culture and tradition. We talk about things that will make you, see what you're doing as important, and you're going to work better for it. Expose it with Mr. Egalitarian. Go wide, all wide world. We're still looking for people. We're still looking for people, genius people around the world who are doing great things. Youth, adults, the young shall grow. And we're going to tell the world that they've got resources. So when we put you on our program, the world come after you and they learn from you and they patronize you. That's what we do. We want to grow many people all around the world. For sponsorship and advert placement, please contact 08066504322 or check Mr. Egalitarian World Motivates page on Facebook, or go to Ogunkayode Capital Online bracket Mr. Egalitarian on Facebook, or you can contact me on Instagram, Mr. underscore egalitarian, and that's it. You're going to get us. We cannot have it more than this on the show today. It has been wonderful. I am super excited that Connor and I could give a final note to that word, and we made it happen. That was fabulous, Connor. I love you so much. Mwah. The old kidney, Sydney, loves you a lot, all right? So take good care of yourself. Today we're going to call it a day, and it's been wonderful. Connor, have a good night's sleep over there. The day is still fresh air because it's still 11 a.m. in the morning. So bye for now. Until we come again next time, we're going to bring Maya to your view. You want to know who is Maya? Get ready because we're going to be there. All right, take good care of yourself. Have a nice Saturday while Sunday waits for you to enjoy also. I am Unkayode Kabirolaiton, and people call me Mr. Egalitarian, your #1 global emerging public speaker, your event anchor. If you have me in your event, you will never regret it. Ponder it twice, and you know what I'm talking about. People who have been there, I've been there. People who have seen us, I've seen us. All right, take care of yourself. Bye. I love you. Mwah. Anytime, any day. Peace out. Egalitarian all the while. We go for the world for global relevance. Take care of yourself now.